Recovery operation for the fifth body that was trapped under the rubble at the site of a collapsed Redcliffe Temple in Verulam resumed this morning. The operation was called off yesterday, you recall, due to heavy rains. Rescuers had recovered the bodies of 4 people who died when that 4-storey structure crashed. These are live pictures that you're seeing on our screen now. One of the deceased is believed to be one of the directors of the temple. KwaZulu-Natal Premier Thamsanqa Ntuli is also expected to pay a visit to the site. For more on that, let's go to SABC News reporter Ayanda Mhlongo at this moment. Ayanda, we see a bit of movement on the top of that hill there. We did see a couple of, I would say about an hour, or is it an hour and a half ago, that recovery basically resumed, and those rescuers or recovery teams are hard at work at this hour. Any news on this 5th body as yet?
Chris, good morning to you once again and to our viewers. Yeah, absolutely. You'd be seeing there in your visuals more rescue teams that have arrived here at the site. And as you're saying there, Chris, indeed, they've been hard at work for the past hour and a half since the recovery of the 5th body started just after 8 o'clock this morning. You'd be seeing there the rescuers with harnesses. They're trying to reach where this body is. Of course, yesterday afternoon, they did say that they had located the body, and it was now just a matter of them trying to get down to where this body is. They've also brought in, you'd see there, Chris, a heavy machinery. There's a grader there. We've also been hearing tools that they are using to try and crack some of the concrete slabs. They've just been working full on here, Chris. I also see a blue top from my vantage point, and I'm not too sure whether or not that they're now preparing to lift that body up to the surface. But that area where my colleague, and today I'm with my colleague Raymond Mpele, and what he is showing you now, okay, we might be disrupted just by this fine rescue trucks that are coming in now also to join this recovery operation. And I must say, Criselda, that these men and women have now been working flat out since this incident happened on Friday, really committed to ensuring that they recover all the bodies that may be trapped under the rubble. Just to go back there to the top, you'll be seeing them gathered there at the top of the site. They are making headway, we understand, with some are now into the rubble as they try to then bring that 5th body up. As we were saying earlier on, Criselda, from the update that we got from IPSS, is that once the 5th body has been retrieved, they are then going to be bringing in the K9, the K9 unit. There are 2 K9s that have come all the way from the Western Cape to assist in this operation, and understand that they are very, very experienced, and they were part of the operation in that after the George building collapse. And so they've then, the Western Cape government has then asked their teams to come to KwaZulu-Natal to assist the teams here. So we will be seeing the K9s will be brought in once they have retrieved the 5th body. So right at the top is where the rescuers are set up, and that is their base. We also are seeing the officials from the Premier's office. They have also arrived, as we did indicate that he is also expected to arrive, or any minute now. I would imagine, Criselda, his security is already here, and he's going to be also visiting the site. He's going to start off at the top of the hill, and that's where the rescuers are set up to meet and speak to them first, obviously, to get an update in terms of this operation. He will then make his way down to sort of the bottom of this hill, where he will then engage with the many other security teams that are here. We, of course, have the engineers that are here. There's really a lot that's going on. Family members as well that are also that are also here, waiting for news. We also just picked up some information, Criselda, of another family that is not certain whether or not their loved one might be amongst the people that have tragically died in this incident. So they're going around asking. Apparently, this gentleman has been missing since a Friday, and he was a construction worker, and they suspect that he might also be amongst the victims of this tragedy. So certainly, as we were saying earlier to you, that there's a lot of interest in this, and also the community members in and around this area have also come out and are sitting and waiting to see what is happening, and also, of course, providing a lot of support in terms of tea and coffee and drinks to the rescuers. I might also just mention, Chris, the weather has not been playing along. Yesterday, we were dealing with the rain, and of course, as you know, as you were saying, that the search had to be called off yesterday afternoon because of the heavy rains. Unfortunately, today it's extremely hot and humid, and so these weather conditions are also, I would imagine, making it a lot more difficult as well for the rescue teams. But they've said, come what may, they are going to continue to search this particular site to ensure that there is no one else that may have been trapped under this rubble. So it's still going to be quite some time, Chris. We expect it to be another very, very long day. Yesterday, the MEC for Cooperative Governance in the province, the Reverend Thulasizwe Buthelezi, assuring the public to say that these teams are going to remain here as long as they need to be. They could not yet estimate sort of the time that this operation will take, but he said that for as long as they've not scan this entire area to ensure that there's no one trapped, these rescuers are going to be here. So we will expect that, over the next coming days, this operation is going to continue. And, once the K9 units are brought in, there might be, more that might come up if there is indeed anyone else that might still be trapped underneath. So still many, many hours ahead for these men and women who are part of this team that is working around the clock to ensure that they find anyone who may be trapped under the rubble. You might be seeing there also in your visuals, Chris, the fire department. These are the firefighters that are also joining this operation, and they too have been here since Friday. More and more teams are continuing to arrive here at the scene. There's, of course, those under the government departments, but we've also seen a number of private companies as well that are offering their assistance to this operation. Assistance in terms of the heavy machinery, assistance even down to simple food and water to provide to these teams. So it's all hands on deck, essentially, Chriselle, to assist these teams. And as we've been saying, that once they have done their work, the scene then is handed over to the SAPS, and then the investigations will then get underway. Chris?
Well, Ayanda, of course, we're likely to get a briefing from the Premier once he is briefed by the rescue and recovery teams there. But any indication, at this stage, I see that the contingent actually is much bigger than what we saw yesterday, or are my eyes deceiving me? I also see from what Ray is showing us there, SABC News cameraman Ray Mbele, that there seem to be more people on the ground now, as perhaps they've got to dig a bit deeper in order to search for this fifth body. Are my eyes deceiving me, or am I reading the situation correctly?
No, you're absolutely correct, Chris. I'm also, from my vantage point, able to see. And they did indicate yesterday, the officials did indicate that, they are going to be bringing in more teams. You'd imagine with such teams, Chris, that there are people with, various or different expertise that are required for such an operation. From the, for example, from the eThekwini Fire Department, they bring certain skills. You also have the SABC search and rescue teams as well that are coming in, and they also have different skills. So they've really put together quite an experienced team of search and rescue rescuers that are part of this team. And as you know, the assurance that the government has given is that whatever the teams here need, they will be provided, be it resources, be it manpower. They are going to get whatever resources that they need. And I mean, we're seeing the help being even extended across the borders of KwaZulu-Natal with those canines that have come from the Western Cape. You'd know that the canines come with their handlers as well. And so we are seeing assistance from outside, you know, not only of Verulam, but even outside of the eThekwini municipality. But this all just shows, Chris, that this is a crucial operation, you know, and that both the rescuers and, of course, the assurance from government is to ensure that they leave no stone unturned, essentially, to ensure that they find anyone who might be trapped. The difficulty, and this is what we've been saying about this particular operation, is of course the fact that they don't know how many people were on site when this incident happened. From what the teams have been told by some of those that were rescued, was that there were a lot of people that were doing different aspects. There were the builders, we understand there were also carpenters, and of course there were other people that were just there at the bottom level of the temple. The temple was open, so you also had people that were part of the that worked for the temple that were also there. Thus, of course, as we know, that one of the people that have sadly passed away is one of the founders of this temple. So they're not really quite certain as to how many people might have been at the site, and I think that is what makes it you know, more difficult for them, and as a result, them saying, Chris, that they're going to have to continue with this operation for as long as possible. What we also do know is that they're working, Chris, section by section. Of course, once they had identified the 5 bodies, their first point was to then get to those 5 bodies and to retrieve them. And what is going to happen now afterwards is that they're going to slowly then work section by section of this particular site as they try to sift through, you know, the scaffolding, the bricks, the sand, the concrete slabs, and all these steel bars to try and go layer by layer just to see if there's no one that may be trapped. But the canines, I think, are going to assist quite a lot of these teams. They are experienced canines, we are told, and so we should be seeing them as well, you know, moving around once, of course, the rescuers have retrieved this 5th body. I think from what I'm seeing now, Chris, they seem to have now gone a bit underground, I would say. I'm seeing their heads picking up from underground just behind the grader. So it does seem, though, that there might have been some area that has been cleared for them to be able to get through. They are also using, Chris, we are told, technology that is able to scan through this area. So there is really a lot in terms of resources, in terms of manpower, in terms of skills, in terms of experience that has been brought here for this operation. Very, very important. I mean, also, Chris, I mean, yesterday the Minister, Dean McPherson, also saying that the President himself has asked for updates on what is happening. The Minister, before his arrival, had briefed the President. He was also expected to brief the President again yesterday afternoon after he had visited the site in terms of this operation. So this is something that has even drawn from what the Minister was saying, the attention of the President, who wants daily updates insofar as what is happening here. It's unfortunate that these incidents are continuing to happen. And I mean, just to reflect on what the Minister was saying yesterday, Chris, this happened just a month after he had the National Construction Summit, if you remember. And you know, there's certain and the adoption of the 2025 National Construction Summit Declaration. And it speaks to all things related to construction, matters around reforms of the construction industry. The minister spoke about accountability, safety regulations. So all what we are seeing here is exactly what the industry and industry officials have been discussing to ensure that incidents like this do not happen. The minister even making reference, for example, to the mining industry and the reforms in the mining industry and what has been done there, and to say that he doesn't see why that can't happen in the construction industry. Also saying that they are working from that report that was done by the Council for Built Environment, who led the report into the George collapse investigation. And there was recommendations there, and he said that they're going to have to work at speed to ensure that they implement those recommendations so incidents like this do not happen. He was visibly unhappy and distressed by this situation, and he said this really calls for urgency from the construction sector, to ensure that, they put all the proper measures and mechanisms in place so such incidents are averted. We may be talking about just an incident, Chris, but what we've been also trying to drum across is that there are innocent people and victims and families that have lost loved ones as a result of this tragedy. Also coming at a difficult time, of the festive, just ahead of the festive season. So really a difficult situation that the government is now having to deal with. But it's now in the hands of those men and women that we see at the top who are hard at work to try and retrieve the body, and then after update us in terms of what's going to happen as this operation continues. Chris?
Ayanda, thank you very much. I think I'm going to give you a breather there. Thank you very much indeed. We'll get the latest from you on that, as, of course, some of the members of the provincial government expected to brief the media a bit later on in terms of what the latest is. The search continues for that fifth body. Underneath all that rubble, a lot more machinery being brought in today, as my colleague Ayanda Mhlongo is reporting there. Certainly a lot in terms of manpower that's also been brought in today. We'll get what the latest is, of course, once the authorities from the provincial government have been briefed on what the latest is. Ayanda, thank you very much indeed, as you keep it quite dangerous there, as you can see. Some of those rescuers really navigating, a very tough terrain there. And certainly they'll have to tread quite carefully as they also maneuver what is obviously very a dangerous ground there to try and find this fifth body that is believed to be still trapped there. But Ayanda also indicating the canine dogs also expected to be brought in. Are there more bodies? Perhaps we'll also get an update on that a bit later on once the media, including my colleague Ayanda Mhlongo, poses some of those questions to members of the provincial government that are expected there. A quick break. When we come back, we continue with more news.